All right. My ladies, gather round. What's the worst damn betrayal you've ever sniffed out in your life? I'm Mr. John Doe, your 58-year-old New York storyteller, spinning tales spicier than a Brooklyn deli sandwich. Picture me, coffee in hand, spilling the tea like we're old pals at a dive bar, laughing over life's messy bits. Tonight, I've got a doozy Claire Whitmore's saga. A gal who got screwed over so bad it'd make your curlers pop. But damn, did she rise betrayal, love, and a comeback that'll have you cheering. It's all here. Want to know how she flipped the script? Stick with me. Hit that subscribe button. And drop a comment. Tell me your own juicy stories. Let's get cozy and dive in, my ladies, 'cause this one's gonna grab you by the heart. The boardroom at Whitmore Global Holdings perched high above Manhattan, a glass fortress gleaming under the midday sun. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a jaw-dropping view of New York's skyline skyscrapers stabbing the sky. Taxis crawling like ants below. Inside, the air was thick with tension, heavy with the scent of expensive cologne and fresh-brewed coffee. The mahogany table stretched long and imposing, surrounded by men and women in tailored suits, their faces a mix of boredom and anticipation. At the head of the table stood Ethan Whitmore, all polished charm and calculated confidence, his voice smooth as whiskey as he pitched his case for permanent CEO. "Under my leadership," Ethan said, gesturing with a hand that betrayed the faintest tremor. "This company has weathered storms nobody saw coming. Now's not the time to back down. It's time to charge forward, stronger than ever." His eyes, sharp and predatory, scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge him. The board members nodded, some hesitantly, others eagerly, lulled by his charisma. Vanessa Clark sat near the end, legs crossed, her black dress clinging to her curves like a second skin. She twirled a diamond bracelet, Claire's bracelet, around her wrist, a smug smile playing on her lips. Ethan's speech hit its crescendo, his voice rising with practiced conviction. "I ask this board to confirm my role as CEO, as my late wife would have wanted." The words hung in the air, heavy with manipulation, and for a moment it seemed he'd won. The chairman, a gray-haired man with a face carved from years of corporate warfare, cleared his throat, ready to call the vote. Then came the click, sharp, deliberate. It sliced through the room like a gunshot. Every head turned as the heavy oak door swung open. A woman stepped inside, her presence commanding the space like a storm rolling in. Claire Whitmore, alive. Her black suit hugged her frame, sharp and tailored, the subtle curve of her pregnancy visible beneath the blazer. Her dark hair was swept into a sleek chignon, every strand in place, and her green eyes burned with a fire that could melt steel. The room froze, a collective gasp sucking the air dry. Ethan's face drained of color, his mouth parting in a silent, horrified whisper of her name. Vanessa's bracelet slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor with a sound like breaking glass. Claire's heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the stunned silence. She stopped at the table's edge, tossing a thick envelope onto the polished surface. It landed with a thud, papers spilling slightly, their edges catching the sunlight. "You thought you could kill me and steal my life," she said, her voice low, steady, but laced with venom. "Hell no." The boardroom erupted into whispers, a low buzz like bees swarming. Ethan staggered back, gripping the table for support, his knuckles white. "Claire, you're dead," he stammered, his charm crumbling like ash. Vanessa's hands trembled, her eyes darting to the exit as if she could outrun the truth. Claire's lips curved into a cold, mirthless smile. Guess I didn't get the memo. She leaned forward, palms pressing against the table, her gaze locking onto Ethan's. You and your side piece thought you could push me off a yacht and walk away with my company. My legacy. Big mistake. Her words cut like a blade, each one precise, dripping with the weight of betrayal. The chairman found his voice, shaky but firm. Miss Whitmore, this is impossible. We were told. It's very possible, Claire interrupted, her tone icy. And very real. Inside that envelope, you'll find everything. Falsified transfers, offshore accounts, tampered trust documents, proof that the night I supposedly died was no accident. It was attempted murder, orchestrated by the man standing right there. She pointed at Ethan, her fingers steady as stone. Gasps rippled through the room. Board members scrambled to open the envelope, papers rustling like dry leaves. Derek Langston, a senior member with sharp eyes and a history tied to Claire's father, leaned forward, scanning the documents. His jaw tightened, a flicker of vindication crossing his face. Harriet Bell, another trustee, clutched a page, her manicured nails digging into the paper. My God, she whispered. Ethan's voice broke through, desperate, cracking. This is a lie. She's faking it, Claire. Tell them. But his words fell flat, drowned by the weight of evidence. Claire didn't spare him a glance. She straightened, her posture regal, and addressed the board. I didn't fake a damn thing. I survived. I documented every step. My family built this empire, and I'm its legal heir. I'm very much alive, and I'm taking it back. Derek's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. I move to suspend the vote and launch a full investigation into Mr. Whitmore's actions. Harriet seconded without hesitation, her voice like steel, unanimous. The chairman declared, his gavel striking with finality. Security appeared at the door, their footsteps heavy. Mr. Whitmore. Come with us, one said. Ethan's eyes darted wildly, searching for allies, but found none, not even Vanessa, who sat frozen, her face pale as death. As the guards led him out, his shoulders slumped, the king reduced to a pawn. Claire stood alone at the table, the room emptying around her. Sunlight poured through the windows, casting her shadow long and unbroken across the floor. Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of triumph mixed with something heavier grief. Maybe, or the ghost of the love she'd once had for Ethan. She closed her eyes, the city's hum fading into a memory that pulled her back to that night. The Serafina swayed gently at Hudson Harbor, its deck gleaming under a silver moon. Claire had padded barefoot through the yacht, a bowl of cherries in hand, her prenatal yoga class cut short by a craving for Ethan's company. She'd wanted to surprise him, to share a quiet moment before their daughter arrived. Instead, she got the surprise. Ethan's voice drifted from the master cabin, low and conspiratorial. Tonight's the night, he murmured, pacing like a caged wolf. She'll never see it coming. One push, and it's done. Claire froze, the bowl slipping from her fingers. Cherries scattered across the teak deck, their juice staining the wood like blood. Her pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the waves lapping against the hull. She signed everything last week. Ethan continued, his voice smug. The will, the assets, it's all mine. Once she's gone, no one's left to challenge us. Vanessa's laugh, sharp and cruel, followed. To us. Then, she said, the clink of champagne glasses sealing the betrayal. Claire didn't cry. She couldn't. Her body moved on instinct, retreating silently to the lower deck. Her hands shook as she strapped on a life jacket, hidden beneath her loose dress. She'd overheard enough to know there was no reasoning with Ethan, no saving the man she'd loved, the man who'd kissed her temple hours earlier, whispering promises of forever, was a stranger now. She called Logan, her oldest friend, her voice barely a whisper. It's Claire. Get to the marina by 10. No lights, no sound, dark clothes. I need you. Logan's concern crackled through the line. You safe, he asked. For now, she replied, her voice steel. But Ethan's planning a tragedy. Let's make sure he gets one instead. That night, as Ethan shoved her over the railing, his hands cold against her chest, Claire didn't scream. The water swallowed her, icy and relentless, but the life jacket buoyed her up. She stayed submerged, counting seconds, her lungs burning. Above, Ethan's footsteps thundered, his voice frantic. Claire. Where are you? She kicked toward the rendezvous point, where Logan's speedboat waited, silent and dark. His strong arms hauled her aboard, his whisper steady. You're safe. She glanced back at the yacht, its silhouette fading into the night. Let him think he won, she said. Her voice edged with ice. This game's just getting started. The memory dissolved, pulling Claire back to the boardroom. Her eyes opened, the Manhattan skyline sharp and unforgiving. She'd survived. Yes, but at what cost? The love she'd poured into Ethan was ashes now, scattered like those cherries on the yacht. Yet another face lingered in her mind, one she hadn't expected. Brooklyn's streets buzzed with life, even in the early morning. Claire had slipped into a corner cafe, her hair tucked under a cap, sunglasses shielding her face. She needed coffee, something to keep her sharp while she planned her next move. The bell above the door jingled, and there he was, Gabriel Navarro, her first love, the one she'd left behind in college when the Whitmore name demanded more than her heart could give. He stood at the counter, ordering his usual black coffee, his broad shoulders filling out a worn leather jacket. His dark hair was longer now, curling at the edges, and his laugh, warm and rough, hit her like a punch. She froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips, as their eyes met. For a moment, time stopped. Still drinking that cheap-ass coffee, she said, lowering her sunglasses, her voice teasing but shaky. Gabriel's grin faltered, then widened, still hiding from the world. Huh. He stepped closer, his gaze searching hers, seeing past the disguise. Claire. What the hell happened to you? She wanted to tell him about Ethan, the yacht, the betrayal, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she forced a smile. Long story. Buy me a coffee, and maybe I'll spill. They laughed, the sound fragile, like glass about to break. But Claire stood abruptly, muttering an excuse, and slipped out before he could stop her. Her heart raced as she walked away, the scent of his cologne woodsy, familiar clinging to her like a ghost. Back in the boardroom, Claire's fingers brushed the edge of the table, grounding her. The papers were still scattered, the board members gone, their whispers echoing in her mind. She'd won this round, but the war wasn't over. Ethan and Vanessa would fight back, and she needed to be ready. Yet Gabriel's face, his voice, kept pulling at her. Could she love again, after everything? Or was her heart too broken to try? She walked to the window. The city sprawling below, alive and relentless. Her reflection stared back, fierce but weary, a woman reborn from the ashes of betrayal. This ain't just about taking down a traitor, she murmured to herself, her breath fogging the glass. It's about figuring out if love's still worth a damn. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, Logan's name flashing. She answered, her voice steady. "What's next?" she asked. "Whatever you say, boss," he replied, a grin in his tone. "But you sure you're ready for this?" Claire's lips curved, a spark igniting in her chest. "Damn right I am. Hey, if Claire's story's got you hooked, you're in for one hell of a ride. She lost it all, her husband, her trust, maybe even her shot at love, but she's fighting back, and it's gonna get wild. Want to see how she takes down the bastards who betrayed her, and figures out if her heart's still in the game. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment. What would you do if someone flipped your world upside down? Let's talk, and I'll see you in the next part. The Brooklyn safe house was a shoebox of a place, tucked above a laundromat that hummed with the endless churn of washing machines. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and old paper, the kind of musty scent that clung to forgotten dreams. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting a sickly yellow glow over a cluttered desk where Claire hunched. Her eyes locked on a laptop screen. Lines of financial records scrolled past Ethan's dirty money, funneled through shell companies like water through a sieve. She rubbed her temples, the weight of betrayal pressing down like a storm cloud. Logan sprawled on a sagging couch nearby, boots propped on a crate, flipping through a stack of surveillance photos. "This guy's sloppy," he said, tossing a picture of Ethan and Vanessa at a Hamptons gala onto the desk. Offshore accounts. Fake invoices he's begging to get caught. Claire didn't look up, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "He's arrogant, not stupid," she said, her voice sharp. "But arrogance makes you careless." Her eyes flicked to the photo, catching Vanessa's smug smile, that damn diamond bracelet glinting on her wrist. Claire's bracelet. Her jaw tightened, a flare of anger burning in her chest. Sophia Navarro burst through the door, her leather jacket slick with rain. The bell above the laundromat jingled faintly below, drowned by the patter of water on the roof. "Got something," Sophia said, shaking droplets from her hair. She slapped a USB drive onto the desk. "Ethan's been wiring cash to a consultancy firm. Guess who's on the payroll?" Claire's eyes narrowed. "Vanessa?" "Bingo," Sophia said, grinning like a cat with a canary. "Hundreds of thousands, labeled as strategic advising. She's no consultant, she's a leech." Claire leaned back, exhaling hard. "Good work, Sophia. This'll bury them." But her voice lacked conviction, her mind drifting. The numbers on the screen blurred, replaced by a face she couldn't shake Gabriel's. His laugh at that Brooklyn cafe, rough and warm, had cracked something open inside her, something she'd buried deep She shook her head, trying to refocus, but Logan caught the shift in her expression. "You good?" he asked, sitting up, his brow furrowed. "Yeah." Claire lied, her voice clipped. "Just tired." She stood, pacing to the window. Outside. Brooklyn pulsed with life, neon signs flickering, cars sloshing through puddles. The rain painted the city in streaks of silver, a restless mirror to her thoughts. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, the damp chill grounding her. "We need to send Ethan a message, something to rattle him." Sophia nodded, plugging the USB into the laptop. "I can draft an email, anonymous, with just enough to make him sweat. Hit him where it hurts." "Do it," Claire said, turning back to the room. "But keep it vague. Let him paranoia do the rest." As Sophia typed, Claire's mind wandered again, back to Gabriel. She hadn't meant to run into him, hadn't meant to feel that spark when their eyes met. But damn it, he'd looked at her like she was still the girl from college, the one who dreamed of more than boardrooms and empires. She hated how much she wanted to see him again, how much it scared her. The rain grew louder, a relentless drumbeat against the roof. Logan glanced at her, his voice softer now. "Claire, you sure you're holding up? This ain't just about Ethan. You're carrying a lot." She forced a smile, brittle as glass. "I'm fine. Logan, let's just get this done." But she wasn't fine. Not even close. The knock came late, sharp and insistent, cutting through the rain's steady roar. Claire froze, her hand hovering over a stack of files. Logan reached for the gun tucked in his waistband, but Claire waved him off, her heart thudding. She peered through the peephole, her breath catching. Gabriel. He stood in the hallway, soaked to the bone, his leather jacket glistening under the flickering fluorescent light. His dark hair clung to his forehead, water dripping onto the worn carpet. His eyes, fierce and searching, locked onto hers through the door. "Claire, open the damn door," he called, his voice rough but steady. "I know you're in there." She hesitated, her pulse racing. Logan raised an eyebrow, but she shook her head, whispering, "It's okay." She unlatched the door, and Gabriel stepped inside, bringing the scent of rain and asphalt with him. The air shifted, charged with something electric. "What the hell are you doing here?" Claire asked, crossing her arms, her voice sharper than she meant. "How'd you even find me, Sophia?" he said, wiping water from his face. "She's my sister. Remember? Not great at keeping secrets." He took a step closer, his boots squeaking on the floor. "You ran out on me at that cafe. Thought we were past that." Claire's throat tightened. "I don't have time for this." "Gabe, you shouldn't be here." "Bullshit," he snapped, his eyes flashing. "You don't get to shut me out again. Not after everything." He closed the distance between them, his presence overwhelming, all heat and intensity. "What happened to you?" "Claire. Why are you hiding like some damn fugitive?" She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the small room. "You want to know what happened? My husband tried to kill me, push me off a yacht because I was in his way. That's what happened." Her voice cracked, the weight of the words spilling out like blood. Gabriel's face softened, shock giving way to something deeper pain. Maybe. Or regret. Jesus. Claire. He reached for her, but she stepped back, her hands trembling. Don't, she said, her voice low. Don't make this harder than it is. Harder, he said, his voice rising. You think this is easy for me? Seeing you like this, broken, but pretending you're not. I never stopped. He cut himself off, running a hand through his wet hair, frustration rolling off him in waves. Stopped what Claire challenged, stepping closer now, her eyes blazing. Loving me. Is that what you were going to say? Because that's a lie, Gabe. You walked away just like I did. I didn't walk. He growled, his voice raw. You pushed me out. You chose your family's empire over us. And I let you because I thought it's what you wanted. But I never stopped loving you. Claire. Not for a damn second. The words hit her like a punch, stealing her breath. The room seemed to shrink, the rain's rhythm pounding in her ears. She wanted to scream, to push him away, to run from the truth in his eyes. But her body betrayed her, moving closer until she could feel the heat radiating from him, the damp leather of his jacket brushing her arm. Gabe, she whispered, her voice breaking. He didn't wait. His hands cupped her face, rough and warm, pulling her into a kiss that was all fire and desperation. The world fell away, leaving only the taste of rain on his lips, the scratch of his stubble against her skin. Her fingers gripped his jacket, pulling him closer, her heart slamming against her ribs. The kiss deepened. Hungry. A collision of years lost and longing unspoken. They stumbled backward, crashing onto the sofa, the springs creaking under their weight. His hands slid to her waist, her nails digging into his shoulders, the air thick with the sound of their ragged breaths and the rain's relentless drum. But Claire pulled back, gasping, her hands pushing against his chest. Stop, she said, her voice trembling. I can't do this. Not now. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall, her body screaming for him even as her mind recoiled. Gabriel's chest heaved, his eyes searching hers. Why not, he asked, his voice hoarse. Because of him. Because you're scared. Talk to me, Claire. I'm not scared. She lied, standing, putting distance between them. I'm broken. Gabe. And you don't get to fix me. He stood too, his jaw tight. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to love you. But you gotta let me in. She turned away, her hand shaking. Get out, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Please. For a moment. He didn't move. The silence heavy with unspoken words. Then he grabbed his jacket, the door slamming behind him, leaving only the rain's echo and the ache in Claire's chest. Across the river, in the sprawling Hamptons estate. Ethan Whitmore paced his office, a tumbler of whiskey in hand. The room was a shrine to his ambition, marble floors, leather chairs, a view of the ocean that screamed money. But tonight, the luxury felt hollow, the walls closing in. His laptop chimed, an email from an unknown sender. The subject line was simple. You missed something. He clicked. his stomach twisting as a single document loaded a bank statement, highlighting transfers to a consultancy firm. Vanessa's name was all over it. His glass slipped, whiskey splashing onto the desk, the sharp scent stinging his nose. "Son of a bitch," he muttered, his voice shaking. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder, her eyes wary. "What's wrong?" she asked, stepping closer, her heels clicking on the marble. Ethan whirled on her, his face contorted. "Someone's fucking with us," he growled, shoving the laptop toward her. "This your idea of careful? Your name's on every damn transaction." Vanessa's face paled, but her voice stayed steady. "You approved those. Ethan, don't pin this on me." She crossed her arms, her bracelet catching the light, a taunt she didn't even realize she was wielding. He grabbed her wrist, his grip tight. "If this blows up, we're both done. You get that, right?" She yanked free, her eyes flashing. "Maybe it's not me you should worry about. Maybe it's your dead wife." The words hung between them, sharp and poisonous, her smirk daring him to deny it. Ethan's hands clenched, his voice low. "Claire's gone. This is someone else. And I'm gonna find them, back in Brooklyn." Claire sat alone, the safe house quieter now, the rain a soft murmur. She stared at an old photo on her phone, her and Ethan, smiling on their wedding day, his arm around her, her eyes bright with hope. The memory stung, a knife twisting in her gut. She'd loved him, poured everything into him, and he'd thrown it away for power. Her finger hovered over the delete button, but she couldn't press it. Not yet. She swiped to another photo, one she hadn't looked at in years, her and Gabriel, sprawled on a blanket in Central Park, his arm around her, her head on his chest. They'd been young, reckless, dreaming of a life that didn't belong to boardrooms or betrayals. Her throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. She'd pushed him away tonight, just like she had back then. But his kiss, his touch, had cracked her open, and she didn't know how to close herself off again. The laptop pinged, snapping her back. Sophia's email draft was ready. A cryptic message designed to haunt Ethan guilt runs deeper than the ocean. Claire's lips curved, a ghost of a smile. "Let's see you squirm," she whispered. Hitting send, she leaned back, her hands cradling her belly, feeling her daughter's faint kick. "We're gonna be okay," she murmured, her voice soft but fierce. "But first, I've got to figure out what the hell I'm doing with my heart." Outside, the rain fell harder, washing the city clean. But Claire's storm was just beginning. The Manhattan office was a shadow of a place, hidden behind a nondescript door in a crumbling building that smelled of dust and ambition long gone sour. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the hum of a printer spitting out pages of Ethan's lies. A narrow window offered a glimpse of the city's pulse horns blaring, lights flickering like stars caught in a concrete jungle. Claire sat at a rickety desk, her fingers sifting through surveillance stills from a Brooklyn camera. Ethan's face stared back, smug as ever, his arm around Vanessa at some glitzy event. Her bracelet, Claire's bracelet, glinted like a knife in the photo, twisting something raw in her chest. Logan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his jaw tight. "He's sniffing around," he said, his voice low. Got word from a contact he's hired some low-life PI to poke around Brooklyn. Thinks he's on to something. Claire's eyes didn't leave the photo, but her grip tightened, crinkling the edges. "Let him look," she said, her voice steady but edged with ice. "He won't find me until I want him to." Sophia burst in, her boots thudding on the worn floor, a laptop tucked under her arm. The door groaned shut, muffling the city's din. "Got a hit," she said, setting the laptop down with a thud. "Ethan's travel logs from the night you died. He told the cops he was in the Hamptons, but his private jet landed in Jersey at midnight." Liar. Claire's lips curved, a flicker of satisfaction breaking through her exhaustion. "That's our leverage," she said, leaning forward. "Pin him to the yacht, and his alibi crumbles." She glanced at Sophia, her voice softening. "You're killing it. Sophia, keep digging." Sophia grinned, but her eyes flicked to Claire's face, catching the shadows under her eyes. "You holding up?" she asked, her tone gentler. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." Claire waved her off, standing to stretch her aching back. "I'm fine," she said, but the lie tasted bitter. She wasn't fine. Gabriel's kiss from the other night burned in her memory, his words echoing like a song she couldn't shake. "I never stopped loving you." She'd pushed him away, scared of what loving him again might cost her. Now, the silence he'd left behind felt heavier than Ethan's betrayal. She walked to the window, the city's chaos a blurry reflection of her thoughts. The glass was cold against her palm, grounding her as her mind drifted. She needed to focus. Ethan was closing in, and one wrong move could end everything. But Gabriel's face, his warmth, kept pulling her back, a tether to a life she'd almost forgotten. "Claire," Logan said, snapping her out of it. "We need to move. If Ethan's PI gets a lead, we're screwed." She nodded, turning back to the room. "Draft a message," she told Sophia. "Anonymous, like before. Send him the jet log, but strip the details. Let him stew." Her voice was firm, but inside, her heart was a tangle of fear and longing. Central Park was a riot of autumn, leaves falling like embers under a gray sky. Claire walked a quiet path, her scarf wrapped tight against the chill, her cap pulled low. The air smelled of earth and crisp decay, the crunch of leaves under her boots a steady rhythm. She'd asked Gabriel to meet her here, away from the safe house, away from the weight of her plans. She needed to see him, to explain why she'd pushed him away, even if the words felt impossible. He was waiting by a bench, his leather jacket open despite the cold, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. His dark hair caught the wind, and his eyes, when they met hers, were a storm of hurt and hope. She stopped a few feet away, her breath catching. The park's sounds, distant laughter, rustling trees fading into a hum. "You came," she said, her voice softer than she meant. "You asked," he replied, his tone even but heavy. "Figured I owed you that much." He stepped closer, the space between them charged with unspoken words. "What do you want, Claire?" "Because I'm done guessing." She swallowed, her throat tight. "I owe you an explanation," she said, her eyes dropping to the ground, where a leaf spun in the breeze. "The other night, I wasn't ready. I'm still not." He didn't move. But his voice sharpened. Ready for what? For me, for us. Or are you just too damn scared to feel anything? His words stung, cutting through her defenses like a blade. I'm not scared, she snapped, meeting his gaze, her eyes blazing. I'm broken. Gabe. Ethan took everything, my trust, my heart, my whole damn life. I don't know if I've got anything left to give you. Gabriel's face softened, but he didn't back down. You think I don't see that, he said, his voice low, raw. You think I don't know you're hurting, but you're not broken. Claire, you're fighting, and I'm fighting for you, whether you want me to or not. Her chest ached, his words pulling at the walls she'd built. She took a step closer, the crunch of leaves loud in the quiet. You don't get it, she said, her voice trembling. If I let you in, and I lose you, I won't survive it. Not again. He reached for her hand, his fingers warm against her cold skin. You won't lose me, he said, his voice steady, a promise carved in stone. But you can't keep running from this, from us. She pulled her hand back, the touch too much, too real. I'm not running, she said. But the lie tasted hollow. I'm trying to take back what's mine. Ethan, Vanessa, they don't get to win. I can't stop until they're done. Gabriel's jaw tightened, his eyes searching hers. And what about you? He asked. What happens when it's over? You gonna keep pushing everyone away? Keep pretending you don't need anyone? He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You're tearing yourself apart, Claire. And I can't watch you do it. The words hit like a wave, crashing over her. She wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong. But the truth in his eyes stopped her. She turned away, her breath hitching, the park blurring through unshed tears. I can't do this, she said, her voice breaking. Not now. Maybe not ever. He didn't follow as she walked away, her boots crunching through the leaves, each step heavier than the last. The wind carried his voice, faint but clear. I'm not giving up on you. Claire, not this time. She kept walking, the park's colors fading into gray, her heart a knot of pain and regret. She'd lost Gabriel once before, and now she was losing him again. But she couldn't stop not until Ethan paid for what he'd done. The memory came unbidden, pulling her back to a different time, a different Claire. It was summer, the air thick with heat, the grass in Central Park soft beneath a blanket where she and Gabriel lay, their fingers intertwined. The stars above were bright, a canvas of dreams they'd shared in whispers. He'd traced circles on her palm, his voice low and warm. We could leave, he'd said, half serious, half dreaming. Ditch this city, your family's empire, all of it. Build something that's ours. She'd laughed, her head on his chest, the steady beat of his heart grounding her. And do what live in a van. You're crazy. Gabe. Crazy for you, he'd teased, kissing her forehead. I don't need the Whitmore name. I just need you. She'd believed him. Then, believed in a future where love was enough, But her father's voice had echoed in her mind. A warning about duty, legacy, the weight of the Whitmore name. She'd pushed Gabriel away, choosing a path that led to Ethan, to promises that turned to poison. Now, those nights under the stars felt like a life stolen, a wound that hadn't healed. Claire blinked, the memory dissolving, leaving her in the Manhattan office. Her hand rested on her belly, her daughter's faint kick a reminder of what she was fighting for. She wiped her eyes, the tears hot against her skin, and sat back at the desk. The printer hummed, spitting out the jet log Sophia had found. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the date-proof Ethan had been at the marina, not the Hamptons, the night he'd tried to kill her, in the Hamptons. Ethan's office was a cage of glass and steel, the ocean beyond the windows churning under a stormy sky. He sat at his desk, a bottle of bourbon open, his tie loosened. The email from the anonymous sender stared back from his laptop screen, a single line. Your jet landed in Jersey at midnight. Attached was a flight log, stark and damning. No explanation offered. His hands shook, the bourbon sloshing in his glass, the sharp scent burning his nose. No, he muttered, his voice hoarse. This can't be. He slammed the glass down, liquid splashing onto the desk, and called Vanessa, his voice a growl. Get in here, now. She appeared moments later, her silk dress clinging to her frame, her eyes wary. What's got you so pissed? She asked, leaning against the doorframe, her voice cool but guarded. He shoved the laptop toward her, the screen glowing in the dim room. Read it, he snapped. Someone knows about the jet, about that night. Vanessa's face didn't change, but her fingers tightened on the doorframe, her nails digging into the wood. She stepped closer, scanning the email, her breath catching. This doesn't prove anything, she said, but her voice wavered. It proves enough, Ethan said, standing, his face inches from hers. You told me we were clean. You said no one would find out. Vanessa's eyes flashed, her composure cracking. Don't you dare blame me, she hissed. You wanted her gone. I just made it happen. She paused, her voice dropping, softer now, almost broken. I grew up with nothing. Ethan, no family, no money, just scraps. I did this so I'd never go back to that. So don't stand there acting like you're the victim. Ethan stared at her, his anger faltering, replaced by a flicker of guilt. He turned away, his hands gripping the desk, the ocean's roar filling the silence. If Claire's out there, he said, his voice barely audible, we're done for. Vanessa didn't respond, her gaze drifting to the window, the storm outside a mirror to the one brewing within. She'd helped Ethan destroy Claire, but now she wasn't so sure who the real enemy was. Back in the office, Claire sealed the jet log in an envelope, her hand steady despite the ache in her chest. Sophia and Logan watched her, their silence heavy with concern. You sure about this? Logan asked, his voice low. Sending this could push Ethan over the edge. Good, Claire said, her voice firm. Let him lose sleep. Let him feel what I felt. She handed the envelope to Sophia. Get this to him. No trace. Sophia nodded, slipping the envelope into her bag. You're playing with fire. Claire, she said, her tone half warning, half admiration. But damn, you're good at it. Claire forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She sat back, her hand resting on the photo of Ethan and Vanessa, her thumb brushing over Vanessa's bracelet. The fight wasn't over, not with Ethan, not with her own heart. Gabriel's words echoed in her mind. I'm not giving up on you. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe in a future where love didn't end in betrayal. But for now, she had a war to win. Outside. The city hummed, its lights flickering through the window, a reminder that the storm was far from over. The Brooklyn construction site sprawled like a skeleton of steel and concrete, its beams silhouetted against a sky bleeding orange and pink. The air carried the sharp tang of metal and sawdust, mingling with the faint salt breeze from the nearby river. Cranes creaked in the distance, their groans blending with the shouts of workers wrapping up for the day. Claire stood at the site's edge, her boots sinking slightly into the muddy ground, her scarf fluttering in the evening wind. She'd come here on impulse, driven by a need she couldn't name. But the sight of Gabriel Navarro stopped her cold. He was high on a scaffold, his silhouette sharp against the sunset, a hard hat tucked under one arm as he called instructions to his crew. His flannel shirt was rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms dusted with sawdust, and his laugh rough, warm, carried over the site's clamor. Claire's heart twisted, a mix of longing and guilt. She'd walked away from him in Central Park, her words cutting deeper than she'd meant. Now, standing here, she wasn't sure if she was ready to mend what she'd broken. A worker spotted her, nodding toward Gabriel. He glanced down, his eyes locking onto hers, and for a moment, the world stilled. He handed off his hard hat and climbed down, his boots thudding against the metal rungs, each step deliberate. When he reached her, his face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with questions. Claire, he said, wiping sweat from his brow, his voice low but steady. Didn't expect you here. She swallowed, her throat tight, the wind tugging at her hair. I didn't expect to come, she admitted, her voice softer than the site's hum. But I owe you something. An apology. Maybe. His jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt, waiting, his presence solid as the steel around them. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across his face, highlighting the lines etched by years she hadn't been part of. I pushed you away, she said, her hands clenching in her pockets. In the park. The other night. I was scared. Gabe, scared of what you make me feel. Her voice trembled, the words spilling out like water from a cracked dam. Ethan broke me, and I don't know if I can be what you need, but I'm tired of running. Gabriel stepped closer, the space between them shrinking, the air thick with the scent of earth and him sweat, wood, something uniquely his. You don't have to be anything, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Just be you. That's all I've ever wanted. Her breath hitched, his words unraveling the knots in her chest. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, tentative, like touching a flame. His hand closed over hers, warm and calloused, anchoring her to the moment. The construction site faded, the crane's creaks and workers' shouts drowned by the steady beat of her heart. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her eyes meeting his, green against brown, raw and unguarded. "For leaving you then, for pushing you away now." Gabriel's thumb traced her knuckles, a slow, grounding motion. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice a promise. "But you gotta let me in, Claire. All the way." She nodded, tears prickling her eyes, and stepped into him, her arms wrapping around his waist. He pulled her close, his chin resting on her head, his flannel soft against her cheek. The sunset bathed them in warmth, the sky a canvas of fire and gold, and for the first time in months, Claire felt safe, not fixed, not whole, but safe. His heartbeat thudded against her ear, a rhythm as steady as the tides, and she let herself sink into it, the world narrowing to the feel of his arms, the warmth of his breath. They didn't kiss, didn't need to. The embrace was enough, a quiet vow spoken in silence. The wind swirled around them, carrying the site's dust and the promise of something new, something worth fighting for. Back in the Manhattan office, the mood was electric, the air buzzing with purpose. Claire sat at the desk, her scarf draped over a chair, her eyes sharp as she reviewed a new stack of documents. Logan paced, his boots scuffing the floor, while Sophia typed furiously on her laptop. The clack of keys a steady beat. The window framed a city alive with lights, Manhattan's skyline glittering like a crown. "Got it," Sophia said, spinning her laptop to face Claire. "Ethan's travel logs are a gold mine. But this," she pointed to a highlighted email, "this is the kill shot. He sent Vanessa a message the night of the yacht, telling her to clear the crew." Straight from his personal account. Claire's lips curved, a predator's smile. "He's done," she said, leaning back, her fingers tapping the desk. "This ties him to the marina. No alibi, no excuses." Logan whistled, low and impressed. "You're scary when you're pissed," he said, grinning. "What's next?" "We leak it," Claire said, her voice firm, not to Ethan too risky, to the board, anonymous, through a secure server. Let them start asking questions. She glanced at Sophia. "Can you make it untraceable?" Sophia smirked, cracking her knuckles. "Child's play. Give me an hour." As Sophia worked, Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Gabriel. "Missed you the second you left. Dinner tomorrow." Her heart skipped, a warmth spreading through her chest. She typed back, "Only if you're cooking," and hit send, a small smile breaking through her focus. Logan caught it, raising an eyebrow. "Someone's in a good mood," he teased, leaning against the desk. "That Navarro's doing." Claire rolled her eyes, but the smile lingered. "Mind your business, Logan," he chuckled, but his voice softened. "Good to see you happy." Claire. "Been a while." She didn't respond, her gaze drifting to the window, the city's lights a reminder of the life she was fighting for. Gabriel's embrace at the construction site had shifted something in her, a crack in the armor she'd worn since the yacht. She wasn't ready to let go of her anger. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, she could hold on to hope. The Hamptons estate glowed under a canopy of stars, its marble halls filled with the clink of glasses and the murmur of wealth. Ethan hosted a gala, a desperate bid to shore up allies before the board's next meeting. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across the room, their light dancing on Vanessa's black gown as she moved through the crowd, her smile a mask of charm. The diamond bracelet on her wrist sparkled, a stolen trophy she wore like armor, but her eyes were restless, scanning the faces around her. Ethan stood by the bar, his tuxedo crisp, his smile strained. He sipped bourbon, the burn doing little to calm the storm in his gut. The anonymous email about his jet had rattled him. And now, whispers of boardroom doubts were circling like sharks. He caught Vanessa's eye, nodding her over, his grip tightening on the glass. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice low, barely audible over the jazz quartet's soft melody. The board's asking questions. Someone's feeding them dirt. Vanessa's smile didn't falter, but her hand paused mid-sip, champagne catching the light. "Dirt?" she asked, her tone cool. "Or truth?" He glared, stepping closer, his voice a hiss. "Don't play games. Vanessa, that jet log, the transfers you said we were clean." She set her glass down, the clink sharp against the bar. "I said we were careful," she corrected, her eyes narrowing. "You're the one who got sloppy. Ethan, don't pin this on me." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist, the bracelet digging into her skin. "You're wearing her damn jewelry," he growled. "You think that's careful? You're playing me, aren't you?" Vanessa yanked free, her face a mask of fury. "You're losing it," she said, her voice low, venomous. "I gave you everything, my loyalty, my plans, and you're crumbling under a little pressure." She leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. "Fix this, or I'm out." She turned, her heels clicking as she melted back into the crowd, leaving Ethan alone, his reflection in the bar's mirror, a man unraveling. The jazz notes curled around him, mocking his control. The bourbon's heat no match for the ice in his veins. He didn't see the server slip a folded note into his pocket. A message from Claire's team, its contents a ticking bomb. Claire stood in the Hamptons estate's old study, a room untouched since her father's death, its mahogany shelves lined with leather-bound books and faded photos. She'd slipped in earlier, needing a moment away from the city, from the fight. The air smelled of wood polish and time, the soft glow of a desk lamp casting shadows across her face. Her mother, Elena, sat across from her, her silver hair catching the light, her eyes sharp but kind. "You're different tonight," Elena said, her voice soft but probing. "There's a lightness in you I haven't seen in months." Claire's fingers traced the edge of a photo her parents on their wedding day, smiling, unaware of the storms to come. "It's Gabriel," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He's still here. Mom, after everything, he's still fighting for me." Elena's smile was bittersweet, her hands folding in her lap. "Love like that is rare," she said, her gaze distant. "I had it once, before your father, a man who saw me, not the Whitmore name, but I let fear choose my path. and I lost him." She looked at Claire, her eyes glistening. "Don't make my mistake. Claire, don't let fear steal your chance." Claire's throat tightened, her mother's words sinking deep. She thought of Gabriel, his arms around her at the construction site, the way he'd held her like she was something precious. "I want to be happy," she said, her voice breaking. "But I'm scared I don't know how." Elena reached for her hand, her touch warm, steady. "You'll learn," she said, her voice a quiet vow. "You're stronger than you know." Claire nodded, tears pricking her eyes. She stood, walking to the window, the ocean beyond a dark expanse under the stars. The study's silence wrapped around her, a cocoon of memory and hope. She'd spent months fighting for justice, for her daughter, for herself. But now, with Gabriel's promise echoing in her heart, she realized she was fighting for something more, a future where love could heal what betrayal had broken. Back at the desk, her phone buzzed, Sophia's name flashing. "It's done." Sophia's voice crackled through. The board got the email. "Ethan's gonna lose his mind." Claire's lips curved, a spark igniting in her chest. "Good," she said, her voice steady. "Let's keep the pressure on." She hung up, her hand resting on her belly. Her daughter's kick a reminder of why she couldn't stop. The fight with Ethan was far from over, but for the first time, Claire felt ready not just to win, but to live. The Queen's warehouse was a rotting husk, its rusted beams groaning under the weight of neglect. Moonlight leaked through broken windows, casting jagged shadows across a floor littered with shattered glass and oil stains. The air reeked of damp metal and decay, a sour tang that clung to the back of Claire Whitmore's throat. She moved through the darkness, her boots crunching softly, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Inside were hard drives damning evidence of Ethan's crimes, ready to be handed to Derek Langston for the board's final blow. Gabriel Navarro walked beside her, his presence a steady warmth in the cold, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. "You sure about this?" Gabriel asked, his voice low, his eyes scanning the shadows. His leather jacket creaked as he moved, the faint scent of sawdust and cologne grounding her. Claire nodded, her jaw tight. "Derek needs these tonight," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Once the board sees them, Ethan's done for." She glanced at him, her green eyes catching the moonlight. "You didn't have to come." "Gabe." He snorted, his flashlight beams sweeping the warehouse. "Like hell I was letting you do this alone," he said, his tone sharp but warm. "You're stuck with me." "Claire." Her lips twitched, a flicker of a smile, but it faded fast. The weight of the past weeks pressed down Ethan's betrayal, the yacht, the fight to reclaim her life. Gabriel's presence was a lifeline, but it also terrified her. Loving him meant risking loss, and she'd already lost too much. They reached a side door, its hinges squealing as Gabriel pushed it open. Outside, a van waited in the alley, its engine idling. Logan at the wheel. Claire handed him the duffel, her breath visible in the chilly air. "Get these to Derek," she said, her voice urgent. "No stops, no detours." Logan nodded, his face grim. "You watch your back," he said, glancing at Gabriel, "both of you." Before Claire could respond, a low rumble echoed through the alley tires on gravel, headlights slicing through the dark. Her heart lurched, her hand instinctively grabbing Gabriel's arm. "Get down!" she hissed, pulling him behind a stack of crates. 2 SUVs screeched to a stop, doors flying open. 4 men spilled out, their boots heavy on the pavement. Flashlight beams darting like predators. Claire's pulse roared. The warehouse's cold biting her skin. She recognized one voice, gruff, commanding. A hired thug Ethan had used before. "Find them," he barked. "Boss wants her alive." Gabriel's hand tightened on hers, his body tense, shielding her. "Stay low," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "We'll get out of this." But Claire's mind raced, piecing it together. Ethan knew. Somehow, he'd found her. The thought sent a chill down her spine, colder than the warehouse's damp air. She glanced at Gabriel, his face set, his eyes fierce. She'd brought him into this, and now he was in danger because of her. The men fanned out, their footsteps echoing, glass crunching under their boots. Claire and Gabriel crept toward the back, weaving through crates, the flashlight beams narrowly missing them. Her heart pounded. Each beat a drum in her ears, the warehouse's shadows closing in like a trap. A gunshot cracked, shattering the silence. The bullet ricocheting off a beam. Claire flinched, her hand gripping Gabriel's. "Move," he hissed, pulling her toward a rusted stairwell. They scrambled up, the metal groaning under their weight. The thugs' shouts growing louder. At the top, a narrow catwalk stretched across the warehouse, swaying slightly as they ran. Another shot rang out, and Gabriel stumbled, a sharp gasp escaping him. Claire's stomach dropped, her eyes darting to his shoulder, where blood seeped through his jacket, dark and glistening. "Gabe," she cried, her voice raw, her hands reaching for him. "I'm fine," he grunted, his face pale, his hand pressing the wound. "Keep going." "No way," she said, her voice shaking, tears burning her eyes. She tore off her scarf, wrapping it tightly around his shoulder, her fingers slick with blood. The metallic smell hit her, twisting her gut, but she forced herself to focus. "You're not dying on me. You hear?" He managed a weak smile, his hand covering hers. "Not planning to," he said, his voice strained. "But we gotta move." The thugs were closing in, their flashlight beams sweeping the catwalk. Claire pulled Gabriel behind a stack of barrels, her breath ragged, the warehouse's cold seeping into her bones. She peeked out, spotting Logan's van peeling away. The duffel safe. Relief flared, but it was short-lived. The men were climbing the stairs, their boots clanging. Gabriel's hand found hers, his grip weak but steady. "Claire," he said, his voice low, urgent. "If we don't make it, don't." She cut him off, her voice fierce. "We're getting out of here. Together." He nodded, his eyes locked on hers. A silent vow. They waited, crouched in the shadows, until the men passed. Then, moving as one, They slipped down a side ladder, hitting the ground hard. Claire supported Gabriel, his weight heavy against her, his blood soaking her sleeve. They staggered toward an exit, the warehouse's darkness swallowing them. Outside, the alley was quiet, the SUVs gone, the thugs searching the wrong end of the building. Claire half-carried Gabriel to a side street where Sophia waited in a beat-up sedan, her face pale as she saw them. "Jesus," she gasped, flinging the door open. "Get in." Claire helped Gabriel into the back, climbing in beside him, her hands shaking as she pressed the scarf tighter against his wound. Sophia floored it, the car lurching through Queens, the city's lights a blur. "He needs a hospital," Claire said, her voice breaking, tears streaming down her face. "No hospitals," Gabriel rasped, his hand finding hers. "Too risky. Get me to the safe house." Claire's heart twisted, but she nodded, her thumb brushing his knuckles. "You're gonna be okay," she whispered, her voice a prayer. "You have to be." The Manhattan safe house was a fortress of dim light and tension, its walls echoing with the city's restless hum. Claire knelt beside Gabriel, now shirtless on a couch, his shoulder bandaged with supplies Sophia had scavenged. The air smelled of antiseptic and blood, the lamp's glow casting harsh shadows across his face. His breathing was shallow, but his eyes were clear, fixed on her with a quiet intensity. "You scared the hell out of me," Claire said, her voice trembling as she taped the bandage, her fingers lingering on his skin. The warmth of him, even now, grounded her. But the blood on her hands was a stark reminder of how close she'd come to losing him. Gabriel's hand caught hers, his grip weak but firm. "But told you I'm not going anywhere," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Takes more than a bullet to keep me from you." She choked on a sob, leaning forward, her forehead resting against his. "This is my fault," she whispered, her tears falling onto his cheek. "I brought you into this. I should have kept you out." "Stop," he said, his voice rough, his hand cupping her face. "I chose this, Claire. I chose you. Always will." His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear, his touch achingly gentle. The room seemed to shrink, the city's hum fading, leaving only the sound of their breaths, ragged and intertwined. Claire's eyes met his, green against brown, raw with pain and love. She leaned in, her lips finding his, the kiss soft at first, then deepening, a desperate anchor in the storm. His hand slid to her neck, pulling her closer, the taste of salt from her tears mingling with the warmth of his mouth. Her fingers traced his jaw, the stubble rough under her touch, her heart pounding as if it could outrun the fear. The kiss was pain and promise, a vow sealed in blood and tears, each breath a reminder of what they'd almost lost. She pulled back, gasping, her hands framing his face. "I can't lose you," she said, her voice raw. "Not now, not ever." "You won't," he said, his voice steady despite the pain. "I'd take 100 bullets for you, Claire. You're my home." Her tears fell harder, but she nodded, pressing her lips to his forehead, the warmth of his skin a lifeline. Sophia cleared her throat from the doorway, her voice soft. "He's stable," she said, holding up a phone. Logan got the drives to Derek. "We're good." Claire exhaled, relief washing over her. but her eyes stayed on Gabriel. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. Sophia nodded, slipping out, leaving them alone. Across the river, Ethan's Hampton's office was a battlefield of shattered glass and rage. He stood amid the wreckage, a broken bottle at his feet, bourbon soaking the rug, its sharp scent filling the air. The note from the gala burned in his hand, its words seared into his mind. The board knows. His laptop screen glowed with an email from an anonymous source, a video clip, grainy but unmistakable, showing Claire at the Brooklyn construction site, alive, her face fierce under a cap. "Fuck!" he roared, hurling the bottle against the wall, shards scattering like stars. His chest heaved, sweat beading on his brow, the ocean's roar outside a mocking echo of his crumbling empire. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her silk robe loose, her face unreadable. "You're losing it," she said, her voice cold, her arms crossed. "They found her, didn't they?" Ethan whirled, his eyes wild. "She's alive," he spat, shoving the laptop toward her. "Claire's out there, and she's coming for us." Vanessa's eyes flicked to the screen, her breath catching, but her voice stayed steady. "You said she was gone," she said, her tone accusing. "You promised we were safe." "I thought she was," he shouted, his hands shaking. "I pushed her off that damn yacht myself." He sank into a chair, his face ashen, the weight of his guilt crushing him. Vanessa stepped closer, her heels silent on the rug. "Then finish it," she said, her voice low, venomous. "Find her. End this, or we're both dead." Ethan stared at her, his eyes hollow. "You're ruthless," he said, his voice barely audible, a mix of awe and revulsion. She shrugged, her lips curving into a faint, mirthless smile. "I learned from you," she said, turning away, her silhouette fading into the hall, leaving Ethan alone with his demons. In the safe house, Claire sat beside Gabriel, her hand in his, the lamp's light softening the lines of his face. Sophia and Logan were in the next room, their voices a low murmur, planning the final steps. Claire's phone buzzed. A message from Derek Drives received. "Board meeting tomorrow. Be ready." She set the phone down, her eyes on Gabriel, his breathing steadier now. "We're close," she said, her voice soft. One more push, and Ethan's finished. He squeezed her hand, his eyes meeting hers. And then what he asked, his voice quiet but piercing. "When it's over, what do you want, Claire?" She hesitated, her throat tight. "You," she said, her voice raw. "A life with you, with our daughter. But I need to end this first." He nodded, his hand tightening on hers. "I'll be here," he said, his voice a vow, "no matter what." Claire leaned in, her lips brushing his, a promise sealed in the quiet. The city hummed beyond the window, its lights a beacon in the dark. But for now, she held on to him, her anchor in a world that had tried to break her. The boardroom at Whitmore Global Holdings was a cathedral of glass and steel, its towering windows framing Manhattan's skyline like a crown. Sunlight poured in, splintering into rainbows across the polished mahogany table, where board members sat in stunned silence. The air smelled of fresh coffee and tension, the faint hum of the city below a distant pulse. Claire Whitmore stood at the table's edge, her black suit sharp, her belly gently curved with the promise of her daughter. Her green eyes burned with resolve, her voice steady as she laid out Ethan's crimes, each word a hammer striking the foundation of his empire. Papers littered the table, bank transfers, travel logs, emails, all meticulously compiled, a mosaic of betrayal. Claire's fingers brushed the folder, her voice cutting through the room. "This isn't just fraud," she said, her tone cold but fierce. "It's attempted murder. Ethan planned to kill me, to steal my family's legacy, but I'm still here, and I'm taking it back." Ethan sat at the head, his face ashen, his tuxedo rumpled from a sleepless night. His hands gripped the table, knuckles white, as if he could hold onto his crumbling world. Vanessa, beside him, was a statue, her black dress stark against her pale skin, her eyes fixed on the bracelet, Claire's bracelet glinting on her wrist. The room's silence was suffocating, broken only by the rustle of papers as Derek Langston flipped through the evidence. "These are serious allegations," Derek said, his voice calm but weighted, his sharp eyes flicking to Ethan. "The board has no choice but to act." Harriet Bell nodded, her manicured nails tapping the table. "I second the motion for an immediate investigation," she said, her tone unyielding. "And a suspension of Mr. Whitmore's role." Ethan's voice erupted, desperate, cracking. "This is a setup," he shouted, standing, his chair scraping the marble floor. "Claire's lying. She faked her death to frame me." But his words fell flat, drowned by the evidence's weight. The board members exchanged glances, their faces a mix of shock and vindication. Claire met his gaze, her eyes like steel. "You thought you could kill me and walk away," she said, her voice low, laced with quiet fury. "You forgot who I am. Ethan, I'm a Whitmore. We don't go down without a fight." The chairman's gavel struck, sharp and final. "Unanimous," he declared. "Mr. Whitmore, you're relieved of duties pending investigation. Security, escort him out." Guards appeared, their footsteps heavy, their faces impassive. Ethan's eyes darted wildly, searching for allies, but found none. Vanessa didn't move, her gaze fixed on the floor, her silence louder than any confession. As the guards led Ethan away, his shoulders slumped, his voice a broken whisper. "Claire, I didn't mean." But she turned away, the boardroom's light casting her shadow long and unbroken. The door closed behind him, a dull thud echoing in the quiet. Claire exhaled, her hands trembling slightly, the weight of victory mingling with a grief she hadn't expected. She'd won, but the cost was carved into her heart. The memory of that boardroom moment lingered as Claire stood at Hudson Harbor, the place where her nightmare had begun. The sun was setting, painting the water in hues of gold and crimson, the waves lapping gently against the docks. The air smelled of salt and freedom, the breeze cool against her skin, tugging at her loose sweater. She'd come here alone, needing to face the water, to reclaim it from the night Ethan had pushed her into its depths. Footsteps approached, soft but deliberate, and she knew it was him before she turned. Gabriel Navarro stood a few feet away, his leather jacket open, his dark hair catching the wind. His shoulder was still bandaged from the warehouse. but his eyes were bright, fixed on her with a love that made her chest ache. He didn't speak, just waited, giving her the space she'd always needed, giving. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, her voice soft, her hands tucked into her pockets to hide their tremble. He stepped closer, the dock creaking under his boots. "You called?" he said, his voice warm, rough around the edges. "I'll always come." "Claire." She turned to face him, the sunset framing her, her green eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's over," she said, her voice breaking. "Ethan's gone. The board's mine. But I don't know what comes next." Gabriel closed the distance, his hand brushing her arm, his touch a spark in the fading light. "You do," he said, his voice steady. "You've been fighting for this moment. For you. For your daughter. And I'm here. Claire. For all of it." Her breath hitched, his words unraveling the last of her defenses. She stepped into him, her hands finding his chest, the leather of his jacket cool under her fingers. "I was so scared," she whispered, her voice raw, "scared of losing you, of loving you. But I'm done running, Gabe. I want this. I want us." His hands cupped her face, his thumbs tracing her cheeks, his eyes searching hers. "You're my forever." "Claire," he said, his voice a vow, deep and unshakable. "No matter what comes, I'm yours." The world fell away, the harbor's waves a soft rhythm, the sunset's glow wrapping them in warmth. Claire tilted her face up, her lips meeting his. The kiss slow, deep, a promise sealed in salt and sunlight. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, her fingers threading through his hair, the strands soft and wind-tangled, the taste of him warm, steady. Home filled her, each breath a shared vow. The waves lapped louder, their cadence matching her heartbeat, the breeze carrying the scent of the sea and his cologne, a blend of wood and earth. Time stretched, the kiss a moment of eternity, a love that had survived betrayal, bullets, and years apart. She pulled back, her forehead resting against his, her breath mingling with his, with, "I love you," she said, the words simple but heavy, a truth she'd carried too long. "I love you too," he replied, his voice rough with emotion, his arms tightening around her. "Always have, always will." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the harbor's light fading into twilight, the city's hum a distant song. Claire felt her daughter kick, a flutter of life, and she smiled, her hand resting on her belly, Gabriel's hand covering hers. The future was uncertain, a path unwritten, but with him beside her, she was ready to face it. The Hamptons' estate was quiet now, its marble halls empty of Ethan's ambition. Claire walked through the nursery, its walls painted soft pink, stuffed animals lining the shelves. A bassinet stood in the center, beside a rocker that had once been her mother's, its wood worn smooth by time. The air smelled of fresh paint and possibility, the moonlight streaming through the window, casting a silver glow across the room. Elena sat in the rocker, her silver hair gleaming, her smile warm as Claire entered. "It's beautiful," Elena said, her voice soft, her eyes on the bassinet. "She'll love it." Claire nodded, her hand brushing the bassinet's edge, her heart full. "I hope so," she said, her voice quiet. "I want her to know she's safe, loved, that she's enough." Elena stood, crossing to her, her hand resting on Claire's shoulder. "She will," she said, her voice steady. "Because you're her mother. You fought for her, for yourself. You've rebuilt what was broken." Claire's eyes glistened, her mother's words sinking deep. "I thought love broke me," she said, her voice trembling. "Ethan, the yacht. I thought it was all I'd ever know. But Gabriel, he showed me it could be different, that I could be whole again." Elena's smile widened, her hand squeezing Claire's. "That's what love does," she said. "It heals. It builds. And you've built something beautiful, Clara." The door creaked, and Gabriel stepped inside, his presence filling the room, his eyes soft as they met hers. "Hope I'm not crashing," he said, his voice warm, a grin tugging at his lips. Claire laughed, the sound light, free. "Your family," she said, crossing to him, her hand finding his. He kissed her forehead, his arm around her, the warmth of him a quiet strength. They stood together, the nursery glowing, the estate no longer a battlefield, but a home. Claire looked out the window, the ocean a dark expanse, its waves a whisper of the past. Ethan was gone, his trial looming, his empire dust. Vanessa had vanished, a letter left behind a single page, her handwriting shaky, apologizing for her part, wishing her peace. Claire had read it once, then set it aside, the words a closure she hadn't sought but accepted. The future stretched out, not a guarantee, but a possibility, a life with her daughter, with Gabriel, with love that had weathered the worst and come out stronger. Claire's hand tightened in his, her heart steady, ready for whatever came next. Claire lost it all, her husband, her trust, her whole damn world, but she fought back, and holy hell, she found a love that's unbreakable. From the yacht that nearly killed her to the harbor where she reclaimed her heart, her story's one of grit, heart, and second chances. What's your take? Could you rise from betrayal and build something stronger? Smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Let's hear your stories and keep these epic tales rolling.